Today we're looking at the Xiaomi M365 Error 14, and we're going to go through from top to bottom, have a look at the issue areas and show you how you can quite possibly get it fixed in the next 10 minutes without ordering any parts, because it is quite simple really. The first one would be the throttle cable here, the throttle lever. That's just a little sensor with two magnets, one either side of the sensor. And there's a cable that runs through here, and it goes through a little hole, and there's a connector here. And that connector is quite a common fault. Then the cable goes right down through there to another connector, which goes directly onto the controller for the scooter. That one could also be the issue. The way to find out really is just to tinker around with these connections up here and here. Have a look inside, see if there's any water damage or corrosion, and if that's not obvious, then just try and figure out which one of the two connectors it is, or the thumb lever. It's not necessarily this. People think it would be this, but the connectors are actually quite bad quality, even though the scooter generally is made of very good components. So you use a screwdriver, pry up this little plastic cover, and you undo 1, 2, 3 screws, and then you can lift this little chip up here. This is called the display, and you'll see in here there are a couple of connectors. And on this particular one, I've been in here a minute ago, on this particular one, these little connectors go here. They're really thin and flimsy and tiny. So what I'm going to do, just to eradicate the issue completely, because I've pinned it down to this connector, is I'm going to solder the wires together, hardwire them in, as opposed to fixing the connector. But what I recommend you do generally, unless you're a person with a soldering iron and the correct size heat shrink and stuff like that, is just to check these pins, the male pins here, and you can see you can try and bend them around a bit, make them sort of poke into the female part there, so they actually make better contact. That's what I recommend doing, unless you're happy to solder them on like me and just hardwire them, because that is a complete fix. And maybe that display might need to be replaced in a year or two's time, and I'll just have to desolder the wires. I'm fine with that. So the other area on the bottom, I'll show you. So the wire goes from here all the way through here, connector, down the handlebars, another connector there. I'll show you that now. Now, just let's show you what happens. You turn it on. Right, that's what happens. 1 beep, pause, 4 beeps. That's how you know you have error 14. Once you've got your scooter upside down, you'll need to undo all of these screws. And this is a really common comment I get on one of my other videos. What screwdriver do you need? So to show you the screw itself, there you go. That's actually a T10, otherwise known as a Torque 10 screwdriver bit. You can get them for a drill, or you can, there's all sorts of places you can get them. I just use one of these little drill bits here, but you can get them for little screwdriver kits like this too. You undo all of them. Quite possibly you'll have 1 or 2 that you've scraped on the ground, and the head will be damaged. In that case, just be careful, because this is not very strong, and just use pliers or something and just try and rotate it and get it out slowly. And you take that off, and there we go. You can see the bottom of the wire that comes down from the dashboard at the top comes down to these two connectors here. So you just need to check these two connectors, both of them, take them out. There's a little pin at the back there, and just check the pins. Just check there's no corrosion, any bluey green oxidation, you know, and hopefully all that's good. Seeing as you're in here, this is a good time to just take all these wires off and start with your battery cable here and take off the controller board, and on the back there's actually thermal paste. If it's more than a year old, it probably needs to be changed, and you'll know that when you take it off. If it's quite greasy, quite wet, it's probably fine. Otherwise, if it's a bit dry or very dry, try and wipe it off very thoroughly. And if you've got thermal paste, that's ideal. Otherwise, you can just use a bit of copper grease. Copper grease is 90% as efficient at transferring heat. So that's what I usually use on things like this if I don't have any thermal grease. That's really important because this will get very hot. It has MOSFETs here, and they transfer the heat through to the actual frame. So the frame acts as a heatsink, which is really quite clever. So you should probably consider doing that if you're going to do that. Also, another tip, if you are someone who rides in a cold, wet climate, it's quite worthwhile just taking off this plastic cover here, and also on your dashboard, and spraying some silicone PTFE spray. Just give it a quick mist over, 1 or 2 mists like that, and that is they use that on boats, that sort of stuff, and you can spray it on chipboards and it just waterproofs them or makes them very resilient, very resistant to water. So if the connectors are okay, and you've done this, and the connector's okay, and the other connector is okay, that's the only two you have to check. The third option is to disassemble the throttle, which we'll do now, and I'll show you inside that. It's a very simple thing inside, actually, and commonly on the internet you'll read that the magnets inside will have come loose, which is probably the case, but not always the case. Okay, this is actually not the same one as what's on the handlebar on that one. However, it is identical. So, and it looks exactly the same, completely identical. This is what it is. You don't need to unscrew the bolt underneath here, in that hole. You can leave that. All you have to do to take this off is undo the connector. So pry open the plastic, pull the connector off, and you leave this screw in, which is not here now obviously because it's on the handlebar, and you pull off the grip, the rubber grip, which I've done, you can see here, and this literally just slides off. You just give it a bit of a pull and the wire will find its way through the handlebar and comes off like this. Super easy. And you find the side that the wire doesn't go through, so not that side, and you pull off this little cover here. That's what you do to start with, so I'll just do that now. Right, that's done. The next stage, if you can't hear or see any rattles, that's confusing, but we're going to dig deeper. So these little plastic bits here, and they create the circle in the middle, just try and squeeze them in and push out the middle, and that will separate this into 2 pieces. So if I can do this on camera with one hand. No, okay, I'll come back. Right, there we go, push that through, and inside you have a spring, and you'll have a little sensor in the middle there, just this here. This is the sensor, and the distance between the 2 magnets on the other piece just there is the that's what tells it the throttle angle. So there we go. These magnets here, they will often fall out. If you can see, they're only sat in a hole, so you should find them and put them back in and glue them. But the important thing is that you get them, put them together next to each other, and find and put north, where you make sure that they push each other away from each other, basically, and then you put them in those little holes there. So effectively, they aren't pulling together; they're pushing away from each other, even though they're quite far apart. In this here, it does make a difference. That's how it needs to be. So, if the magnets are in and the connectors are all fine on the scooter, the only issue is this little sensor here. That's all it could be. And if that's the case, your best bet is to not unscrew that screw and try and look inside it and figure it out, because that will pretty much not come to anything. Is to just order a new one of these. They're about $5 or something like that from AliExpress. I'll put a couple of links to some for you on AliExpress or eBay or Amazon, and you can order these. A very generic part, and yeah, hopefully that helps someone. That's how you diagnose and figure out the issue with the Xiaomi M365 error 14 code. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and feel free to comment. I always get back to people when they comment if you've got any questions. And yeah, consider subscribing. More videos like this coming soon. Also, if you'd like to see a full teardown from top to bottom of the Xiaomi M365, just click the like button and comment and let me know, and I will do that. The next video, I believe, is I'm going to take out the bearings on the wheels and just repack them with grease because they sound a little bit dry. This scooter has done 4,000 kilometers, so that would be why. Thank you for watching, and hope you learned something, and consider looking at the Patreon link below as well to support the channel.